What a soothing, beautiful message. It was so soft that you might not have heard all of the words, but being gentle with ourselves is something that we do here at Unity of London. We're gentle, and at the same time, we call upon the strength of each other. We welcome all who are online today, including Tom from far away in Mexico, and anybody else who may be watching later. And we know that here at Unity, we honor and respect all who are with us. Here's Lucy from Quebec, and we're happy you're here. Today, we will be sharing our vision and mission statements as we always do. And our vision is to see a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. That is a powerful, powerful thought. And we see that happening right now. We see it happening with our leaders, and we see it happening with people like you and me, sharing spiritually and awakening. And this is spreading throughout the world. And our mission is connected with that. Our mission is to transform lives. How do we do that? How do we transform ourselves and others? We inspire people through our words, our actions, and our communication to make a positive difference in the world. If that doesn't make you want to dance and sing, I don't know what does. So as we think of that, inspiring people to make a positive difference in the world, let us go now into prayer. Before we go into prayer, a reminder that after our meeting today, we'll have a little shorter fellowship following service, and then we'll have our town hall meeting. This is important because it's a chance for you to hear from your members of the board and to hear some special reports and the result of our survey. All are welcome to attend, and that will be right here on Zoom. And you may have a little brief respite to run and get coffee. Let us now go to our spiritual center, our hearts, as we move into prayer. As we move into prayer, we honor and remember all faith-filled people gathered in prayer all over the world today. We send out our love and respect for all faiths as we honor our oneness with divine source. We hold in prayer today all of our healthcare workers, our personal support workers, our doctors, nurses, paratransit, ambulance drivers, custodians who do all the cleaning and the caring in the hospitals, the long-term health cares, the COVID centers of vaccination and testing. We send out our loving affirmation of the spiritual strength and generosity of these people. We also honor our firefighters, whose dedication and courage help save lives, and our police officers. We send out loving affirmation today for parents and children, for educators, that they may grow in love and strength during these challenging times. I invite you to whisper the names of anyone you wish to hold in prayer today. We include all our members of Unity, those who may be facing surgery, that their surgeries be successful, that their healing be quick and strong. Those who may be going through challenges of physical or emotional areas, that they may be strong in spirit, that they may feel our loving energy. They may be reminded that the love of God surrounds them. and divine oneness is always with them. Take a moment now to whisper names of those you wish to hold in prayer. During our time of prayer, we release any anxiety or fear, any doubt. We affirm that in quietness and confidence shall be our strength. We accept our powers. We know that we are capable of handling each day as it unfolds. Amen. And our daily word today will be shared by our dear Bonnie Orvidas.
Thank you, Pauline. I am divine. Over the years, I have learned there is a spark of divinity within me and within all people. This divine spark binds us as members of one family and deepens our awareness of God. Today, my understanding of my divinity expands. My divine nature is so much more than a spark. It is my essence, who I truly am. I realize I don't have to rely on anything outside of myself for love, comfort, and guidance. Everything I could ever need from God is already mine and is expressing as me. My realization of oneness extends to all people, whom I now see as fellow divine beings. Freed from all illusion of separation, I am aware of the divine presence everywhere, expressing through everyone. We are divine. And from John 17:21, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you, may they also be in us. Today it is my pleasure to introduce Wendy Karr, who will be giving us a message on life. Wendy has been a member of the Unity movement since 1984 and recently celebrated her 20th anniversary as a licensed Unity teacher. She currently serves as licensed Unity teacher representative and education coordinator to Unity Canada, as well as serving on Unity Worldwide Ministries licensed Unity teacher ministry team. Wendy's current endeavor is teaching spiritual education and enrichment C courses by video conferencing. Learners from across Canada are joining together weekly to study Unity teachings and the Bible. Let's welcome Wendy.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm actually going to talk about faith. That's our theme for the month, is faith. If you recall from past Christmas candlelight services, you may remember that it's represented by the color blue, and it's represented by the disciple Peter. I'm not going to really talk about either of those right now. I'm very aware of how challenging the world is right now, and I want to give you some practical ideas about how we can continue to get through this time of seeming chaos. The picture that appears on your screen I took when I was vacationing in the British Virgin Islands. And we had been tied to a mooring ball overnight, and it had been a rather rough storm, and I was quite convinced the mooring ball was going to crash through the side of the hull where my bunk was, and that I would wake up with wet feet. But in the midst of that, the calm came. And I think that's part of our challenge. I know for me it is being faithful that this will come to a conclusion, that the vaccinations will come and that enough of us will be willing to take it, that we will get out of COVID and that we will be able to come together in person, and that I will be able to drive down the 401 and come and see and hug you folks in person and have that interconnectedness that really has been missing for all of us these last months. So let's start, as I usually do, with my fussiness about languaging and our words. And let me just give you a quick trivia question statement that you can stop conversations cold with. So faith, or faithful, or faith-filled appears, according to my research, 24 times in the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which has been Unity's standard for many years. It's translated from 23 Hebrew words and 40 Greek words. So what does that mean? Well, it means that once again, English is ill-equipped to give us the fullness of the meaning of this word. And I bring that out because usually when you talk about having faith, it's about something invisible. It's about having faith in God, but it's not something we can touch with our hands, with our senses. And we have, faith that, when there's a red light, that the other driver will stop. So things that, really are kind of out there and can't be confirmed by our senses. But when you go back into the Greek, when you go back into the Hebrew and the Aramaic, the word faith, as translated into English, actually comes out of other words meaning trustworthy, meaning security, true, truthful, truly, and constancy. And that for me really gives a different flavor to the word faith. The idea that it's not about trying to do something, trying to trick my mind into a belief in something that I can't see, touch, taste, or hear with my human ears, but rather the idea that there is a principle, that there is a constancy out in the universe that I am part of in the oneness, and we all are part of in the oneness, and that through that we can come into a space where we can rest in the idea that things are going to be okay, that God is expressing in and through us, and that this is just an opportunity for the world to do some changing in thinking, do some changing in beliefs. Some folks are doing it kicking and screaming. I know there's a few that I've gone, but I've always believed that. And so let's move into this and get into the idea of what truly is faith. What is it that we're seeking? And I invite you to just kind of let go of your preconceived notions or your current sense of understanding of the word, and just set that aside. You can pick it up on the way out. I promise it'll be there for you. And just allow yourself to move into some quotes from our early founders and early writers, namely Charles Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founders, and Emily Cady, one of Unity's earliest writers. She's a whole talk unto herself, but let's get into it. From Emily Cady: hope expects an answer sometime in the future. Faith takes it as having already been given. Hope looks forward. Faith declares that one has received even before there is the slightest visible evidence. Our way is to declare something done after it has become obvious to the senses. God's way is to declare it done before there is anything whatever in sight. And that's from God a Present Help. And that really is different than what I was raised with. And I'm sure many of you also were not raised in Unity. I think I need both hands now to count the number of people I know who were raised in Unity's teachings. But for those of us that were taught in a different path, that perhaps we had to obey a certain God's guidelines, or we were raised with the idea of God in the clouds with the big book of whether or not we get somewhere after we died, that, this whole idea, though, that we will see it when we believe it, that things will happen as soon as we have faith that they will, that we don't have to wait for things to show up to start believing in them. And it seems counterintuitive to our human minds. It really does. Because, well, how can I believe in that when I can't see it, when I can't touch it, when I can't, my senses are telling me and likely screaming, but that's not real. And this is where our faith really needs to be stretched. And I say stretched because we have, as I'll show you, we have the fullness of faith within us. It's just we're not expressing it as fully as we might, whether it's out of fear or out of a lack of practice or a lack of awareness. But the point is that we can choose to declare something done before we have any outer evidence of it. And just moving into that and bringing in the other 11 powers that we'll talk about over the course of the year with this year's theme, bringing those into alignment with the faith. Faith has to be first because that's the foundation on which everything else is built. The development of the faith faculty in the mind is as necessary to the worker in spiritual principles as is the development of the mathematical faculty in the worker in mathematics. Neither of these faculties comes at a fully formed into consciousness, but both grow by cultivation. You have the possession of the fullness of faith, but not unlike an acorn. Is an acorn an oak tree? Yes, in potentiality. Yes, in what it will become. So too with us, we have that acorn of faith in us, but it takes time, it takes practice, it takes focus to get that into manifestation, into the outer, into being able to respond first with faith, not with fear, not with anxiety, but to come into that space where that's our first response. All that is required is perseverance of our use of faith. Faith is not unlike, and actually all of the 12 powers are not unlike doing exercises, whether it's yoga or a high cardio or a high aerobic. As you work the muscle of your faith, as you work that faith, as you get more comfortable with it, as you get into the space where, as I just said, it's your first response, not have to think it through and decide that, oh, well, this is the time to be faithful, where it becomes your absolute knee-jerk reaction. That is what this is about. This is about learning how to express it in greater fullness. And I think we can all agree that right now, our world needs people of faith. And not faith in something in the future, but faith in the right here and now, right in this moment, that things are changing, that things are happening. I'm sure I'm not the only one here who breathed a sigh of relief on Wednesday when Joe Biden had finished his oath of office and they started playing Hail to the Chief. And I heard myself exhale. I was kind of surprised that I exhaled, but clearly I'd been holding my breath for a while. So this is about learning how to accept faith in all aspects of our life. It's not just limited to some spiritual thing that we do on Sunday, but that while you're driving, while you're grocery shopping, while you're interacting with people, whether it's in person within your bubble or it's on Zoom or other platform, the idea that as you practice faith, as you get more comfortable with it, I mean, think about it. Do you have confidence most of the time? I realize there are times it doesn't count, especially if it's slippery out. But most of the time, do you have faith that other drivers will stop on a red light? Of course we do. So we build on that faith so that we can expand that, so that we can trust and have that faith that as we move through life, good things will happen. Opportunities will have a choice to come into our awareness because we're more aware, because we're in that state of faith instead of fear. Intellectual faith admits doubt and hope of fulfillment in the future. Spiritual faith includes unfailing assurance and immediate response. So I want you to think not of these as being good and bad, but of being two ends of a spectrum. That at some point, intellectual faith is better than no faith. That if you can intellectually work yourself through in a logical if-then, or however you do it, that you can get into a state of faith that perhaps is more intellectual, perhaps is more based in the physical and the human experience, but moving towards that spiritual faith, that all is well with the world, that God is in and through us, and that we have the capacity to do great things. So many times, not having faith is seen as a bad thing. I invite you to let go of that, release that, and just think of yourself as being on a spectrum of, am I in my intellect or am I in my spiritual? Again, I've used this idea before. The two sides of a coin, your spiritual side, your human side. You're rolling on the edge, being as balanced as you can between the two, and sometimes leaning one way or the other. Emily Cady has a similar kind of thought. And again, I invite you to consider this not as good and bad, but as ends of a spectrum. Blind faith is an instinctive trust in a higher power than ourselves. Understanding faith is based on immutable principle. So if we look at this as a spectrum, I would submit to you that Jesus, our way shower, was both having understanding faith and also spiritual faith, to the point that he understood spiritual principles at the same level we would understand physical laws, the idea of gravity, the idea that if you drop something from a high place that it will fall, the ideas of how the tides work. All of these physical principles and laws have similar spiritual laws and principles that are equally immutable and equally able for us to be tapped into. We just have to have a greater understanding of them. Now, as I said at the beginning, we have this time of chaos, seeming chaos. We have this time where the world is feeling kind of broken, to be quite honest. I do not have, if anybody did, put it in the chat, but I never had in my life plan live through a global pandemic. That was not one of my bucket list. I don't know if that was for any of you. Perhaps, if you're wanting to stretch yourself, perhaps that could be on a bucket list. But in the last year or so, I have learned that I need to stretch my faith even further than I had. I thought I had faith, and then COVID hit, and I went, oh, wait a minute, some things are being challenged here. How do I get more faith? As I said earlier, it's not something to get. People talk about, oh, I just need more faith. No, I would submit, personal opinion, that you already have all the faith you need. As I said before, it's like the acorn. It's about expressing that faith. It's about that step out in faith. It's about stepping out in simple ways, that perhaps just even having the faith that you can reach out to one of your community at Unity of London and say, hey, how do you feel about having a phone call while we sip our tea or our coffee or whatever your preferred beverage is? And having the faith that they won't say, oh, well, you're just a bleep, 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 but that they will respond in kind. Things about having the faith that you will continue to have the funds to meet your requirements for rent or mortgage or utilities or whatever. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, said that there was nothing that you couldn't pray for. And when challenged by someone who said, so I can pray for another glass of whiskey or a whole bottle, Charles Fillmore said, yes, of course you can. You can pray for anything. It's just about choosing where you're going to put your faith. Are you going to put your faith in the bottle or in God? And this is an opportunity for us to put our faith in the chaos or in God. As we understand God to be, as we experience God, we all experience God slightly differently because we all have different life experiences. And that's what I believe we came to this earth to do and to be, is to have that experience. We are divine beings having a human experience. So as we work through healing our planet together, and I truly believe that that's what is happening right now, is that we come to this space. I mean, I've been doing a meditation since 1984 on New Year's Day. The tape is getting a little worn after 30 years, but every year we talked about bringing these things that need to be healed to the surface for healing. And isn't that what we're seeing right now? Opportunities for healing, opportunities to create a new cosmic consciousness around the world that brings peace and wholeness and prosperity to everyone, not just a select few. Spiritual healing depends on faith, and there cannot be faith while the mind is holding thoughts directly opposed to the possibility of healing. It is therefore very necessary to dwell much on the love and power of God so that a steady, unwavering faith may be established. If you haven't read Adam's Smashing Power of Mind, I commend you to it. It's an interesting book. Charles Fillmore, prior to the Manhattan Project, was predicting that if you split the atom, that it would unleash great energy. So this is about, the idea of the mind and the body together. This is from writings at the beginning of the 1900s and into the 1920s. This is the period that he wrote this type of thing. The idea that we can have a spiritual healing, but it does require us to be willing to participate and to be willing to, as Jesus said, keep our eyes single on what it is we want, not on all of the chaos around us. Think of the hurricane. You want to be at that eye of the hurricane where it is calm and allow the chaos just to flow around you and allow the eye of the hurricane to move with you in that calm, in that peace, in that confidence in your faith. We have faith, for it is innate in everyone. Our question is how we may put it to work in our affairs. If you are in a space where you're looking for something to do outside of the home that is still safe, trust that something will come up. I have great confidence in the ability of the world and of God to produce employment for me. And that has come over years of practice, over years of learning how to listen, how to be awake to the guidance. And it's been really interesting. Sometimes I've had a conversation with someone that as I walked away, I went, well, that was weird. And then as I walked a little farther away and the words started to shift, I realized, wait a minute, that was an answered prayer from a total stranger. Allowing ourselves to be that faith, not only for ourselves, but for someone else. And that's our opportunity right now to come together and express this innate faith in everything that we do and say. Have faith in what you're doing because you are working with God's own unfailing, unchangeable law and you cannot fail. Right now, it may not feel like we're getting much done because we're all at home, or at least I am, have been for months. But I know that my spiritual practices while I'm at home actually have got deeper, have gotten greater, have gotten a bit longer because I'm not driving to work anymore. I'm not having to worry about how long I'm going to be out on the road. There are opportunities if we just take some time. And before we got on the air, a number of people were sharing that they have cats. I had a cat years ago who knew when it was time to pray. And if I didn't pray or my husband didn't take prayer time, he would sit and look at you and meow until you sat down, gave him a lap, and he would stay there for about 15 minutes purring. And when you said amen, he jumped down. Don't tell me that cats aren't smart and aren't spiritual beings. I don't know if the dogs do it. I haven't had a dog, but opportunities like this, instead of sitting watching TV, perhaps add some prayer time, some faith stretching time into your daily routine. As I walk in faith, my way becomes clear. And that's the big thing for me, is being aware and being in that space in all things, whether it's grocery shopping, whether it's where I'm going to buy my gas when my car finally needs some, whether it's who I'm going to call on a particular day or reach out to. It's about moving out of our faith rather than trying to pull it in. It's that expression outwards. If you are considering becoming a credentialed leader, write this down. Faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. That is the official definition of faith. So the ability of us to see something beyond. Can you see a world without COVID? Can you see yourself playing down in one of the parks? Can you see yourself in a mall at Christmas where it's kind of crowded, but no one's afraid and no one's wearing a mask because we're over the COVID threat? Or can you see a world where everyone is treated equally regardless of their skin color or of their sexual orientation? Can you see a world where our politics don't matter and we're not stabbing each other in the back because of it? Can you see that world? Most of the time I can. Every so often I'll have a wobble, but that's okay. I'm still learning too. We all are. If we pray for rain, we should be sure that we have our umbrellas with us. If you're praying for rain and you don't have your umbrella, expect to get wet or expect there not to be rain, because where is your faith? If you have an umbrella, you have absolute faith that the rain is coming. I would submit if you have your hip waders on and an umbrella, that you know that it's going to pour and the crops are going to grow. And finally, from Emily Cady, your business is to stand still and proclaim, it is done. It is done regardless of what the media tells you, what social media tells you, what your own eyes and ears tell you. Know within yourself that whatever it is you are seeking at this point, whether it is peace of mind, health of body, a relationship, the end to COVID, everything is done in potentiality. It's just that we've got to get into that space where it is done in our human experience as well. So there's your homework. Learning how to express this innate faith that you already have, that you have in abundance beyond your wildest dreams, beyond that which your mind is capable of imagining. That foundation on which you will build everything else of the 12 powers will lead you to a space of peace, of wholeness, of prosperity, and of an incredible life that you perhaps could not have dreamed of. So I thank you. And now I'll invite you to do a little wiggle as we get ready for our meditation. I have learned that if I don't do a little wiggle first, my body will insist on a wiggle during the meditation. And we're going to have a couple thoughts as we move in. I had sent this along. We're going to just do a little bit of kind of a verbal journaling, asking the questions: when do I feel most faith-filled? What areas of my life am I faith-filled? And are there places where I feel less faith-filled? And I invite you, as it says at the bottom, no blame, shame, or judgment. Just aim for a neutral observation, or as close to neutral as you can. I have condemned myself on more occasions than I care to count. But let's take these words from Reverend Duke Tuffy. Even in the midst of the darkest of times, we have the power to choose the effect the situation has on us and determine how we are going to respond. Are we going to respond with faith or with fear? So with that, I invite you to get comfortable, whatever you're sitting on or in. Taking a few deep breaths, moving into the oneness where we truly are one with each other, with God, with all beings. Allowing my words and my voice to be your words and your voice while we are in this time together. Heart to heart, hand to hand, soul to soul. And in that space where we feel the oneness, to allow ourselves to feel that faculty of faith. We are told it is located in the brain, right in the middle, right at the point where it can receive and send all sorts of ideas, inspirations, guidance. And we just breathe into that space. Allowing ourselves, as the song said, being gentle with ourselves. It's kind of doing an inventory. Are there spaces where my faith is strong? Where it's my go-to, where it's my knee-jerk reaction? recognizing those as foundations on which I can build. Giving myself praise that I can and I do respond from a place of faith. And breathing into that faith, allowing it to infuse our body, allowing it to infuse our thoughts, allowing it to calm us, to bring us into that eye of the hurricane. Knowing that as we become comfortable in that eye of the hurricane, we can reach out and bring others into the eye with us. And gently allowing that foundation to just rest. We turn our mind to places where we may not feel as faith-filled, where that voice might be saying, you need more faith here, go get it. And we gently say, I don't need to get it. I have it. It is innate within me. I am learning how to express it more effectively in greater methods, in ways I hadn't previously thought of. And just breathing into that space gently, neutrally, allowing ourselves to bring forward some areas that might need a little bit of extra faith. Perhaps it's a place that we don't think faith belongs. But if it is a part of us, then it is a part of our faith equally. We just rest in this awareness for a while. And having affirmed faith as expressing through us, we affirm that faith is expressing through every person on this planet in whatever form they are capable of at this moment in time, knowing that this moment is not the end, but only part of the journey, that greater growth and expression are possible so far as we agree to it and allow it. We hold in love and joy and peace this world, all beings on it, all form of life, knowing that even the mustard seed has faith of a type that it will grow into a larger bush than could be imagined. And for this time, for this opportunity to dip into our well of faith and replenish ourselves, we are so grateful. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.
Amen. We thank Wendy for an inspiring, packed, educational talk about faith. And it was not a surprise to me that Wendy quoted from our founders, Charles Fillmore, Emily Cady, the tenets of faith and how they affect us in our lives. Thank you, Wendy, for inspiring us with hope and our faith in our own possibilities. And we will think often about your faith and your message as we go forth. Thanks to Wendy. What a rousing song. And this brings us to our opportunity to express our faith. And we express our faith in abiding prosperity when we tithe. This is our opportunity to share of our abundance to our spiritual center that feeds us. And we know that in sharing our tithe, we are saying, I believe. I believe in the spiritual center. I believe in my many opportunities for abundance. You can share of your tithe by clicking on the little button above, or you can go to the Unity of London website, and it's in our weekly newsletter. And we are grateful for all that we receive, and we welcome our opportunity to give back. And now we move to our prayer. This is a prayer that is with us every day. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. And at Unity of London, we say, yay, God. Yay, divine presence within. And our peace song. And please sing at home. Enjoy a wonderful day, everyone. And please take time now to share a little bit in our fellowship. I think Larry's unmuting us. And if you have any questions or comments for Wendy, just put your hand up and she'll be happy